I'm extremely happy and privileged to welcome the speaker for today, Mr. K. Jairaj. He's a person who needs no introduction, of course, but then it's important to also explain what he has done so that the context is very well set. Mr. Jairaj is a member of the 1976 batch of the Indian Administrative Service. And just as a tidbit, it was exactly a year after I was born. So we can literally say that my age is his experience. So he comes with that kind of experience. And he's had a glittering career as a bureaucrat and as a person who has made a big difference to Bangalore as well. In fact, I would say that the kind of exposure that he has had and the kind of work that he has done in Bengaluru, he has pretty much seen, touched, and administered Bengaluru in ways that we find it very difficult to even imagine. And here is why that is the case. He has held positions as the additional chief secretary of the energy department. He's been the chairman of BESCOM. He's been the managing director of Karnataka Power Corporation. He's been the managing director of Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation. He's been the commissioner of commercial taxes. He's been the principal secretary to the chief minister. And along with people like Mr. Narayan Murthy, chairman emeritus of Infosys, Mr. Jairaj actually established the Bangalore International Airport Limited as India's first greenfield airport on a public-private partnership basis with Siemens Germany. It was one of its kind project at that time and clearly set the benchmark for many of the other airports that came up subsequently. He also served as the managing director of the Bangalore International Airport Limited. And more importantly, in terms of the relevance for this session, he has been the commissioner of the Bangalore City Corporation, what was called as Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike at that time and has become Brihat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike today. He served as the commissioner of BMP for 2 different terms under 2 different chief ministers as well. So he brings that kind of an experience and exposure to Bengaluru governance like I don't think anybody else has. He's also been part of the boards of many fantastic institutions like Indian Institute of Management Bangalore and other institutions. He served with the World Bank in Washington, D.C., USA, also as a public sector management specialist. So the Rolodex keeps rolling on and on. So indeed, it's a pleasure and honor for us to have Mr. Jairaj in our midst. Thank you once again, sir, for agreeing to talk to us, talk to Bengaluru citizens about your own views on Bengaluru and its governance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Srikanth. It's a pleasure again sharing a platform with you.
Yeah.
Under the auspices of BNP. I want to tell all of you folks that I have become a strong proponent of the kind of movement that BNP is under the leadership of Srikanth and his colleagues. And I think that it's a happy augury that what he mentioned by way of belief will hopefully improve matters in the city of Bangalore. So many years ago, you know, I went to Harvard to study at the Kennedy School. I went to do a mid-year program in public affairs. And among the first classes I attended was a person called Robert Putnam. And Robert Putnam spoke about a term, folks, called social capital, which intrigued me. And I'll tell you why I am mentioning this as a start. He said, it's important that we all listen to this. He said that urban communities that do well do so because of what he described as social capital. And he said social capital had many dimensions, primary among which were voluntariness, combining together out of personal will, not out of coercion, civic centeredness, taking responsibility for your actions, and having the capacity to do things. Now, that made a deep mark on me because, you know, after I came back, after a few assignments, I went for the first time as Commissioner BMP, it was Bangalore Mahanagar Palike, in 1999 when S.M. Krishna was CM. I might have mentioned a few things, Shrikant, in our earlier session, so I would like to seek your excuse in any repetition, but there is a purpose in my doing so. And when I went as
No problems at
commissioner,
all. Please
when
feel free.
SM Krishna appointed me as commissioner, he called me and said that, Bangalore is languishing. By the way, folks, this was 20 years ago. And he said Bangalore is languishing, and cities like Hyderabad has overtaken us, because at that point in time, Hyderabad was chosen over Bangalore to locate Microsoft and so on. And he says, we should now bring back Bangalore to what it was. We should benchmark and so on and so forth. And that's when we began a kind of an urban renewal movement for Bangalore. But one of the first things I noticed was that there was a complete absence of social capital in Bangalore in the way Robert Putnam described it. Voluntariness, civic involvement, doing things, executing ability, and so on. So today, after 21 years, I would like to ask you to reflect in your minds and think, is there the social capital in Bangalore today which can mark it out as a progressive urban community? I am posing this question before you because I think this is the crux of the issue about the absence of social capital in the city. And I will develop this argument as I go along in the 30 minutes that I have been given. So to start with 1999, 2001, the first time I was commissioner, Bangalore then was constituted into 100 wards. I presume all of you know what a ward is. That's the basic administrative unit in a civic setup. And these 100 wards had a population roughly of 55 lakhs. And it was spread over about, if I remember right, something like 300 square kilometers or 350 square kilometers. And at that point also, there was a great sense of drift in the city. There was a lack of cohesion between the urban administration and the elected representatives. And the first survey that was done then was by an organization called Public Affairs Center. I would request Shrikant someday to invite PAC. I'll be happy to arrange. It was started by a very great individual called Samuel Paul, who was a former director of IIM Ahmedabad and later in the World Bank. And he came back to India and started this Public Affairs Center. Unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago, but my friend Guru Charan is the director of this center, and it continues to do great work in the area of urban governance. So Sam Paul at that point released a kind of a report card of urban institutions like BMP, BDA, BWSSB, BESCOM was not in existence then, and the local transport authority. And no surprise that the worst ranked of all these utilities was, of course, BMP. And among them, it was said the corruption in BMP was very high compared to all the other organizations. And this corruption was most manifest in property taxes. And it was so ironic that even if a ratepayer had to pay property tax, they had to bribe the concerned revenue inspector to accept the property tax, let alone all the other distortions that existed in the system, such as improper assessment, fixing very high rates, etc. And it got to a point where the institutions that existed to protect the citizen became a mockery. For instance, there was an appeal provision which said that if a citizen was dissatisfied with the property tax fixed, he or she could go in an appeal, which was a group of corporators. And the horror of it was that in order for the appeal to be admitted, the citizen had to pay a certain bribe to the appellate body, let alone what kind of a result would be forthcoming. Of course, as part of the reform in property tax, we had the appellate body scrapped, and the appeals would then lie with what is called the Karnataka Appellate Tribunal, but that's another story. So when this situation was so manifest, what we did was that we brought about a fundamental change in the property tax system in Bangalore. And those of you who are house owners or who are in the know of things know that this is called the SAS, Self-Assessment Scheme. I will not go into the details of this scheme, except to say that it was stoutly resisted by the ruling party in Karnataka today, which was then in the opposition. And the self-assessment scheme saw the light of day because of the support of the Chief Minister and the then Mayor, Mr. Ramchandrappa. And the originators of the self-assessment scheme were two extraordinarily bright officers, Mr. Vasant Rao and Mr. Ashok Dalwai. Dalwai was my number two, and Vasant Rao, I had brought him from the commercial tax department to spearhead the tax effort in the BMP. In the year that I joined, the property tax collection in BMP was hardly 80 or 90 crores. I forget how much it was. Recognizing that it was the main source of revenue of the BMP. Today it's about 2,000 crores. The next year, when the self-assessment scheme came into existence, the property tax doubled from 90 to 175 or 180 crores. I'll not go into all the implementation issues of property tax because, that's a case study in implementation, and I don't want to talk about implementation before you. But what I want to stress in the context of self-assessment scheme was that it empowered the citizens to calculate their own taxes on the basis of easy to understand rules which were published. There was nothing opaque about the system. So for instance, if you had a house in Jayanagar, 4th block, the rules would say this is the property value in terms of square foot, depending upon the construction. If you had a Paka unit with a good RCC roof, and if you had a good flooring, then so much would be, and so on and so forth. So for all different types of areas, the property tax was fixed on the basis of what we call per square foot. You had to calculate how much it was. You had to get the product. And if you were self-occupied, you had to pay 25%. If you were leasing it out, you had to pay 33%. A beautiful booklet was published in Kannada and English and circulated to all the public. A lot of endorsements were made, celebrity endorsements. We had full-page advertisements taken in. And my friends Vasant Rao and Dalwai and others addressed the Chamber of Commerce, resident welfare associations. And at that time, the BATF, Bangalore Agenda Task Force, was started. We took the help of Nandan Nilekani and others like Ravi Chandran to kind of publicize this. But it was an official effort, folks. BATF did not do the self-assessment scheme. They came at the point of communication. And I mentioned that it was an official effort because I want to pay a tribute to the officers for spearheading it, and also to the mayor, because otherwise, earlier, when Dr. Ravindra was commissioner, he tried to do a progressive measure like this, but it was stymied because of lack of political support in the council. And this time, we were able to get the political support because of the support of the chief minister and the assistance of the mayor. I want you to bear that in mind because, normally we may ask the question, what is the role of corporators? What is the role of the mayor? And I want to emphasize the point that if change has to be brought about in the city, We do require a very motivated, strong, and proactive corporator orientation, and we do require good political leadership, because administrative leadership is always more or less play second fiddle to the political leadership, as they should in a democracy. So the
Yeah.
self-assessment scheme came into existence in 2000, and post that, it brought about a new outlook in terms of the relationship with the public, in terms of empowering the public, and in terms of transferring the trust from the officialdom to the public. Of course, there were certain ground rules that if you fudged your property tax, and if that was determined during scrutiny, then you would have to pay a very severe fine and so on. But I won't go into all those issues because they're implementation issues. A second thing I would like to mention during my term as commissioner the first time is the attempt at introducing transparency in all these works undertaken by BNP. You know, there is a saying in Kannada, I'm sure most of you know Kannada, Hale Kallu Hosa Billu. Hale Kallu Hosa Billu, which means old stone, new bill. Among the first things I was told in the corporation was that, you know, money is drawn for all fake works. That, you know, work bills are faked and it is admitted for payment, although the money is not, although the work is not done on the ground. And so, because I had a group of dedicated engineers I had taken from my previous workplace, which is the Karnataka Power Corporation, I took 30 engineers from there, and I established a technical audit cell under the commissioner, and I made it mandatory that all work bills would be scrutinized by the technical advisory cell before it is admitted for payment. And what it did was it eliminated at one go all the fake bills and spurious works which were claimed for payment, because when they put things together and they did a verification and saw that actually there was no work but it was being claimed as a amount, then that guy would be in trouble, whoever was the engineer or something of that kind. Another aspect relating to this transparency was, you know, ward level works. You're familiar with ward level works. At my time, 1 crore or so was the amount for each ward. Today, I think it's about 10 crores, I'm not sure. And I found that in each of these wards, the works relating to municipal improvement, drains, stormwater drains, clearing, small roads, etc., all these works would be given to the choice of the corporator on what is called piecework basis. Namely, that, you know, I am a friend of the corporator, or I am his cousin or nephew or uncle or whatever, and the corporator would say, award the work to him. And that was the basis in which these works were awarded, piecework basis. And I was horrified because piecework basis did not follow any norms. Forget the norms of transparency. Specifications were not there. Quality was not maintained. And it was just a splurge of public money. And because of my background as Managing Director, Karnataka Power Corporation, 5 years, in which I monitored major works like dams and, you know, power plants and so on, I had acquired by that time an engineering perspective to works. And so I immediately went about and said, number one, every work to be done in a ward will have specification. 2, every work will have estimates, how much it costs. 3, except for emergency works that take place during breach or during monsoon or whatever, all works would be tendered. 4, registration of contractors is compulsory in order to see that they too have credentials and they have bona fides. And 5, the lowest eligible bid would be made the offer, and they would get the work, and they had to execute the work under a particular time frame according to a work order. There would be scrutiny, and payment will be made only after the work was executed. Of course, you would think, folks, that is quite normal. What is so special about all that? Well, it was special because it didn't exist earlier in a city like Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of India. And you would be surprised that this met with an uproar. And of course, one very prominent corporator, I won't mention his name, he's a friend of mine. He got up in the corporation council and said, "Who is this fellow to tell us what to do?" He said in Kannada, Jairaj avaru bandmele tamma samrajyavana ಬೆಳೆಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. Mr. Jairaj is promoting his own empire. Does he think that we don't know what to do? We know the pulse of the people. So if we give the works on piecework basis, it is because we think that is the way public interest has to be met. And Mr. Jairaj or any commissioner cannot tell us what to do, because we determine what has to be done, and words to that effect. And I was extremely incensed at this kind of behavior. And I went to the chief minister and told him, well, you told me, that we have to improve Bangalore, benchmark it with the best. This is what I have done, and I have been abused like this in the corporation council. And the chief minister was very kind. He picked up the phone and told the mayor, how did you allow that fellow to speak like this? I'm going to supersede the council. Watch out. And the mayor also admonished those people, and there was no comment after that. But it did set the ball rolling for the kind of reforms that we wanted, including, I must also tell you, one of the other pernicious practices then was that, the assistant engineer in each ward was appointed by the on the recommendation of the corporator. So chits would come to the commissioner and said, appoint XYZ as the engineer. And commissioners of the earlier days would do it in order to see that, there was a kind of buy-in from the corporator. I put an end to it and said, corporators cannot tell us whom to appoint as engineers or otherwise. That is to be determined on the basis of administrative feasibility, the background of the person coming in, what is the kind of work we want them to do, their reputation, and so on. I put an end to that. And yes, that also met with some resistance. But over a period of time, corporators stopped asking questions. So this is the kind of changes that were brought about. And I'm, summarizing it at some length because I want to stay within the deadline given by Srikanth. And these were the important changes in engineering. But here is something I want to tell you, the first time itself, which depressed me. There was absolute public apathy to whatever we did. The public would be interested only when it concerned them individually. But there was no kind of public good feeling about the work to be done. And an interesting thing is in the compliance with the building bylaws. I might have mentioned this earlier to Srikanth. A very prominent physician of Bangalore, well known to my parents, came and met me and said, look, the guy next door is infringing all the laws. He's building way up beyond the height permissible, and ingress and egress of light to me is blocked. Come and have a look at it. And I was very upset. I sent my engineer and said, go immediately, make a spot inspection, and if what he is saying is true, issue a demolition notice and take action. There was some delay on the part of the engineer coming back to me, and I summoned him. And when he came back after a couple of days, I said, what's wrong? He said, sir, I don't know, I'm embarrassed to tell you. I said, go ahead. He said, whatever this gentleman has alleged is true. The neighbor is contravened the building bylaw by an extent of 70%. But, sir, the complainant, the eminent physician, he has contravened to an extent of 100%. So that is why I'm saying that, there is this absolute lack of citizen centeredness. See, friends, we speak about all these building bylaws. Go to Chickpet and go to Mamulpet, go to any of the older areas of Bangalore and tell me, where is this bylaw being followed regarding margin, regarding space, regarding height? Nowhere. And yet, as I discovered the first time I was commissioner, enforcement is impossible. I'll give you another example of enforcement, and maybe this could promote some discussion. Take this roadside religious shrines belonging to any community. I'm not focused on any one community. It is next to impossible to remove a religious shrine for the reason that the officers hesitate to do that because they fear divine wrath, but they also fear the kind of resistance from the public. And as a result, as I saw, and as you have also seen, most of these religious shrines on the roadside are actually money-making rackets. Somebody usurps them, uses them, runs them, and then makes money out of the offerings given to them by the gullible people. And over that also, BMP has no control. So that is why the feeling was reinforced in me at the end of the period that no matter what we did, however much we tried, whatever order we tried to restore, the social capital was a casualty. And when I left the first time, I was, very disturbed to see that within the BMP, the capacity to execute works was so poor because the engineers and other officers, they just lacked the administrative scruple and the administrative muscle to do things in view of the political uncertainties and the interference. But more, there was this lack of attitude on their part, low motivation. And that low motivation arose because of low self-esteem on their part. And this is the very enlightened audience, so I'm trying to tell all of you that, they are more sinned against than sinning. Because, as soon as they get into their job, a lot of negative forces comes into them. And this negative force inhibits them from doing well, inhibits them from protecting the law, inhibits them from serving the public interest. And another aspect I discovered, and I want to stress on this because it's important for all of you to understand, is that BMP may be the prime civic organization in a city like Bangalore, but the resource base it has is absolutely limited. The major source of revenue for BMP is property tax. That is what it collects from the buildings. But apart from property tax, all other sources of revenue are very minor, which is why there is this great tussle between various tiers of government. The central government has control over the major sources of revenue like income tax, excise, and so on, followed by the state government, which has a share of devolution of all that. But the lowest level of formation in government, which is the urban government, has no control over the finances. Even Bangalore city, for instance, according to one calculation, contributes about roughly 45% of the income tax accruing from the state of Karnataka. But how much do we get back by way of apportionment? The state government gives a certain development grant to the city, but that development grant does not match whatever income is generated in the city. Now, I'm not making an argument that, we should be independent and all that. That's not my point at all. I'm just wanting you to reflect on how resources must be shaped in order to meet city needs. And what we have, what we raise, what we collect is inadequate from the point of view of the requirements of the citizens. So these were some of my takeaways from the first term as commissioner. And then I left, and then I went to the World Bank and so on and so forth. And I came back after a few years, and there was a coalition government which was in Karnataka, headed by Mr. Kumaraswamy, who was a very active young man who wanted to bring about a lot of change in the system. And so the second time, Mr. Kumaraswamy, as soon as I came back from the US, he appointed me as commissioner of BMP the second time. And then he called me and said, you see, the mandate now is that we have all these outlying areas, town municipalities, panchayats. We want to create a large metropolitan body for Bangalore called Brahat Bangalore Mahanagar Palika, as against BMP. And this is on the lines of what we do, what they have done in Mumbai. And I want you to spearhead that effort. I want you to integrate all those areas. And having done that, you must give a master plan for the development of the city. That was a very engaging task because it meant integrating the new areas with the old 100 wards. And it meant, delimitation of constituencies, mapping up new boundaries and so on. And we did it diligently. And that was when we created the idea of zone. And I think within 6 months of my joining, we had integrated the new parts. And I think we created 8 zones, each zone to be headed by a joint commissioner. And the joint commissioner would have various wings under him or her, like engineering, health, revenue, works, and so on. And having done that, in 2007, the BBMP was constituted with 198 wards and with a population of 1 crore or so, almost double of what it was when BMP was there, and spread over 900 or so square kilometers. My numbers may not be completely accurate because I'm speaking from memory, but 198 wards is what was collected, what was developed compared to hardly 100 wards earlier. So you can imagine what the council would have been: 198 corporators, 28 MLAs, MPs, MLCs. It was almost close to 175 people on a regular council meeting. But I left the second time before the elected council came into existence. I was there when the first council was there with BMP, and then when it was when the term was not renewed because the BBMP had to come into existence. So here are some couple of things that I want to tell you about the BBMP experience. One of the things I noticed in the second time was that ordinary people would have to run from pillar to post in order to get building license if they wanted to conduct a homestead on land that they had. It would take them not less than 1 year in order to get the building license approved because they had to go from various quarters. So I, with the help of my colleagues, created a system called Suvarna Parwanigi, which means automatic plan license. So if you had a land holding of whatever, but if the plan envisaged a building size of less than 2,000 square feet, then if it received certification from an architect registered with the Architects Association of India, then if you followed some norms in filling your application, you would get your automatic plan sanction in 7 days. You didn't have to go to pillar and post. You didn't have to go here and there in order to canvass somebody's opinion or favor for this license. If you had followed all the laws, if it were according to the building plan, and if it was certified by the architect of your choice, as long as they were registered with the Architects Association, you would get this plan license sanctioned within 7 days. That we said would be a measure that would be hailed by the public, because like self-assessment scheme, it transferred the trust and ownership to the public rather than the licensing authority, as long as the norms were followed. And that was met with great acceptance from the public. They really appreciated this measure, and they said it reduces the bureaucracy, it reduces the red tape, and so on. The other important thing I remember now having done was to revamp the entire solid waste management system. And, we in this 198 wards, what we did was, like the engineering transparency I did the first time, we had an organization called IDEC, Infrastructure Development Corporation of Karnataka, did a complete study, did a proper tendering system, and identified what should be the pre-qualification of the contractors. And we floated these bids so that solid waste management could be undertaken by qualified agencies, which meant pickup of garbage, collection, assimilation, and storage at various points outside the city. And there was a huge solid so-called garbage mafia, which took offense at this kind of systematic development, and there was a lot of resistance, and there was a to and forth discussion on the subjects. Finally, we were able to get this tendering going, and we identified the contractors, and we fixed responsibilities for them, and got the solid waste management system. So I'm mentioning these two so that, there's a question that I see which says, can you stop corruption in BBMP? Yes, it is possible to stop corruption in BBMP, as long as you define the process and as long as you put time limits on what work has to be done. That is from the demand side, meaning those who seek corruption, those who want money for work to be done, we can put a control over them. But what about the supply side? What if the member of the public consciously contravenes the law, but still wants his work to be done? Now, folks, do a little introspection on that. I know somebody who built a building, and the building, the sanctioned strength was 4 floors. He built 6 floors. And so I know this because my cousin was offered a flat on the 5th floor. And she came and met me and said, look, they have built it, can you help them get occupancy certificate? I said, well, if they have followed the law, why should they not get occupancy certificate? And it turned out that the reason why the occupancy certificate was not given was because there was an unauthorized 5th and 6th floor, and he was giving her an apartment on the 5th floor for concessional terms so that, they can get the occupancy certificate. I didn't give the occupancy certificate. I don't know what happened subsequently. But I know that she was very upset with me for not doing it. And now I want to ask you the question to my friend who says, can you control corruption in the BBMP? I learned later that, he got the occupancy certificate by doing whatever he had to. So in this case, my friend, who is at fault? The member of the public, the builder who not only contravenes the law, but also induces corruption into the system. And of course, the person who took it is definitely at fault. They should be proceeded with and they should be punished. So one of the other things I want to mention in my second term was the advent of the RTI. The Right to Information Act was just promulgated. At that time, I became the BBMP commissioner. And Mr. K.K. Mishra was the first chief commissioner of this information. And he called me and said, BBMP is the most vital public organization in the city. So you better create a proper information system for releasing information to the public. And there's this whole process that you had to apply, and you had to give some money, and then within so many days you would be assured of the information. And to my mind, the RTI was a great success because ordinary people could now get information which was related to their needs and which could make them understand why a certain thing was done or not done. Of course, there were a lot of abuses in the RTI. I remember in one of the areas in Gandhinagar, one person put an RTI application saying, I want 40 years of building plans to be given to me, or 40 years of sanctioned plans to be given. I also know that there were other people who used the RTI in order to settle scores with the officers, and who threatened officers that if you don't give me money, I will file a complaint against you under RTI and make sure that you are punished. I know those cases also. But the abuses in the system cannot check whatever good has come out of it. So the RTI is also another measure which came during that time. And I think civic bodies like BNP must and have made a study of the RTI, and they use it as a powerful tool for, citizen-centeredness and citizen action. Okay, folks, now I've got another 10 minutes, so I want to wind up. I want to speak about two aspects more, and then I'll conclude. One, about people, the people aspect in BNP, because you are all social activists. Some of you may want to contest the election, and I strongly encourage you to do so if you are interested. But what are the people aspects I've seen in Bangalore as commissioner? One, as I already mentioned, is the great apathy in the system. Apathy on the part of the public. That when it comes to their own interests, they are very energetic, but when it comes to the public interest, they shy away. And this is apparent in the kind of voter turnout you have in the city. I'm associated with an organization called BPAC. And in BPAC, we did a lot of voter education, voter turnout, voter awareness, and so on. And last time in Bangalore, the polling percentage was some 52 or 53 or something of that kind. And that was appalling that in an urban area like Bangalore, enlightened people are there and so articulate about their wishes. Why this turnout is so low? So voter apathy is one major point that I want to bring to your notice. The second point I want to emphasize is that, while there's a lot to be said about indifference on the part of the officialdom, lack of capacity, equally, the public are responsible for infringing the laws. And we must therefore turn inwards as part of this social capital that I mentioned at the start to see how citizen-centeredness can also revolve around a sense of responsibility in order to see that the laws are followed. Because if you follow the law, nobody can, question you about it. And automatically the scope for corruption will come down if people become law-abiding. There is no other escape from this dictum that the law-abiding people are the best safeguard to see that corruption is reduced in the system. And the third aspect is this, what I call tragedy of the commons. That, when you see something happening in front of you, you kind of turn a blind eye. I'll give you an example. I was told that, lot of civic assets, lot of public spaces in areas like Chikpet, Mamulpet, Tharagpet, etc. that existed earlier, were all knocked away by the public over a period of time. That, first they would take them under civic assets for some use, and then over 5, 10, 15 years, they would surreptitiously get the khata in their name, of course, with the connivance of the authorities. I mention this because we did a study, I think the second time I was commissioner, of all the civic assets in the control of BBMP. And I was appalled to see that there were so few of them. Majority of them did not exist. And this just establishes the point that the tragedy of the common, so to speak, is something that stares us in the face and is also another factor that contributes to diminished social capital in Bangalore city. Now, I want to say a few words about corporators because Srikanth has asked me to speak a little bit about the role of the corporators. There is a misconception, folks, that all corporators are useless, they are all corrupt, they follow a certain stereotype. That's not so. In my working experience in BBMP and BMP, I have found that roughly 25 to 30% of the corporators are public spirited, capable, hardworking, and they're also honest. It's not true to say that everybody is subject to the same thing, but these people are those who uphold the law and they uphold the public interest. But the remaining 70% are the problem today, and this number has got accentuated with the BBMP coming into force because a new class of rentiers, real estate people, other special interests have now got into the electoral stream and they have been elected. And you know about it when you read the papers, you see them. It is very difficult for officialdom to work with them because their objectives are short-term in definition and they are relentlessly maximizing their interests. What is the antidote for this? The antidote for this is an enlightened political leadership at the local level who come up through popular participation. And therefore, I'm a firm believer that if you have to improve governance in Bangalore, you have to improve the quality of political leadership through younger people, enlightened people standing for elections as corporators. And they must have professional interests apart from being a corporator because the corporator cannot be a whole-time occupation. In the good old days, they spoke about a great mayor of Bangalore who was a doctor, a general practitioner. His name was Sheshadri. I mention his name because, he was a great example of what a public-spirited leader should be. He had a thriving practice somewhere in Vayali Kaval, and he was also mayor of the city. He was an enlightened man, and like that, there have been many others. There was another person called Krishna Iyer, who was also a very noble mayor. And so I can give several examples of that kind. But I think that today, in order for matters to improve in Bangalore, with all the systems and processes and IT and HR systems that are required, it is the quality of public leadership that's important, which is why I support the movement that Srikanth and his colleagues have started of trying to get interested people, motivated people, stand for office, local office, so that they can become corporators. Of course, the remuneration that corporators get is too little. Yes, I agree with that. Their working facilities are also inadequate. Yes, I agree with that. Which is why I say that it cannot be a whole-time avocation for people. They must have other professional interests which help them to earn income legitimately so that they can focus on their work as corporators otherwise. To be a corporator for the full time, is not a feasible proposition. That is the only way in which you can prevent the fence from eating the crop, and it is also the only way in which you can ensure that to be a corporator is not a full-time business of people.